in the effort to vaccinate Africa. President Cyril Ramaphosa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador Thomas Greenfield, President Joe Biden, Excellencies and colleagues. President Biden, allow me to thank you for convening this important summit on COVID-19. This coronavirus pandemic has not only led to the untimely death of millions of people around the world, but has also destroyed the livelihoods of millions of people. I'd like to applaud you, President Biden, for the generosity that has been demonstrated by the United States under your leadership by donating millions of vaccines to several countries around the world to help various countries to cope with this pandemic. South Africa has been a grateful beneficiary of your generosity, for which we thank you. This summit marks an important milestone in our response as a global community to the COVID-19 pandemic, to account and to vaccinate the world. We are encouraged that the goals and targets for ending the pandemic are broadly aligned with the key components of the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator. However, we must take current realities into account. We have committed to vaccinating at least 70% of the world's population by next year. But we are now at the end of September and have not yet fully reached 10% target we set ourselves in May. The gulf is widening between better resourced nations who are buying up and even hoarding vaccines and developing countries who are struggling to have access to vaccines. The pandemic has revealed the full extent of the vaccine gap between developed and developing economies and how that gap can severely undermine global health security. Of around 66 billion vaccine doses administered worldwide, only 2% of these have been administered in Africa, a continent of more than 1.2 billion people. This must be unjust, and it also is immoral. Whilst we welcome the donations and the sharing of vaccines to developing countries, and President Biden, we welcome your announcements today for a further allocation to developing countries. We, however, reiterate our proposal that developing countries should be enabled to manufacture their own vaccines as well as to procure them directly. South Africa and India have proposed that the World Trade Organization should approve the proposal we've made for the waiver of the TRIPS provision. And we'd like to thank you, President Biden, for being amongst those number of countries who are supporting this proposal. With a view to ensuring that African countries would have better access to vaccines, all African Union member states signed an agreement through the Africa Vaccines Acquisition Task Team, which I helped to set up when I was chair of the African Union, so that we can gain access to 220 million, rising to 440 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. South Africa will also host the World Health Organization's first COVID-19 mRNA vaccine technology transfer hub to serve the African continent. Our African countries are also building capacity for manufacturing supported by Partnership for Vaccine Manufacturing in Africa. So this summit must come up with a sustainable plan on how developing countries can be supported through technology, through finance, and through various other means of support, not only to meet targets around vaccinations, oxygen, diagnostics, personal protective equipment, but also for manufacturing. We must close the financing and supply gap for COVAX, for the Africa Vaccine Acquisition Task Team, and other mechanisms. The greatest lesson we've learned from the pandemic is that fortune favors those who are prepared. We support the establishment of a global health financial intermediary fund for pandemic preparedness, as well as a Global Health Threats Council. But I'd also like to speak in support of Secretary General Guterres' proposal to have a global vaccination plan. Cooperation, collective action, and above all, consensus is our greatest strength in the current crisis and will continue to be so into the future. I thank you.
Thank you, President Ramaphosa. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. We look forward to hearing about your new actions that you and the European Commission will take this fall to vaccinate the world, save lives, and achieve sustainable health security financing.